The next session is global promotion of Australian cotton. 2 years ago, Cotton Australia launched a project called the Cotton to Market Strategy, and in that time, we've joined partnerships with two global groups. One that most of you would be aware of is Cotton Leads, and that started basically 2 years ago, and it's a promotion of US and Australian cotton, just promoting cotton globally as a fibre. One of the biggest risks we've got for our industry is man-made fibres, and look, we've really got the belief that any promotion of cotton is a good thing, and we've certainly been encouraged by our partnership with Cotton Inc. and the Leads process. 12 months ago, we formed a partnership with the Better Cotton Initiative, and we basically started the process about 2 years ago, and it took 12 months to go through the implementation process. And 12 months ago, nearly to this month, we formed a partnership with the Better Cotton Initiative. And at that time, Cotton Australia also got nominated onto the board of Better Cotton. So in the last 12 months, that has been a really great process. It was a bit daunting at the start, but the idea of Better Cotton is bringing together the whole supply chain from the farmer to the retailer, and it's very much driven by the retailer level, and we've certainly gained a lot of interest and feedback being involved with that process. And another valuable partnership with the Better Cotton Initiative is also the NGO groups. And I was certainly hesitant at the start with that process. You can think sitting around a board table with NGOs, and predominantly we've always thought that they haven't given us the best response, but it's been a very valuable tool. We certainly don't agree on all the conversations, but we can come to a mutual understanding fairly quickly, and it's been a very valuable process. And also with our cotton to market strategy, we've really ramped up our efforts into the domestic side and promoting my BMP. And we're certainly gaining a lot of interest on our domestic retailers, and you'll probably see some of that evidence in companies like Target and things like that, and it's gaining momentum very quickly. What I've learned in the whole process, it's been a very valuable partnership for Cotton Australia, because we're partnering with groups that they've got a lot of funding. Cotton Inc. In the $50 to $80 million budget range, where they generally promote cotton worldwide. BCI has got magnificent partners. They're driven by some of the world's largest retailers, and they're making public statements by year 2020. They're having a certain percentage of their cotton, or if not all, has to come from a sustainable program. So if we're not a part of these programs, if it comes to fruition, they won't be sourcing cotton from us. So it's been a very, very valuable process that Cotton Australia and Cotton from Australia is a part of the process. So if they do meet these targets, and they will get a lot of pushback from the NGOs if they don't reach these public targets. But we've got two speakers. One's Simon Talbot, from the CEO from NFF, and NFF have started a true Aussie brand, and it's following on with, I think it'll be a great process. One thing I have learnt is, as Australian producers, we haven't been very good at promoting ourselves well. We know, our mills know our fabric's good, our fiber's good, but what I have learned is our retailers and brands didn't really know much about Australia. So for our direct customers, they know we've been good. For our end user, they didn't know much about Australia. So I think for what NFF are doing with the True Aussie brand, I think it's going to be a great thing. I think promoting all the Australian products worldwide is a great thing. And then following Simon, good friend Corin Wood-Jones from BCI's all the way from Geneva, and he'll enlighten a bit more about BCI. But I'd like to invite Simon up to the stage to present about NFF.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you for the introduction, Simon. Today I'm going to talk about brand and the importance of brand. And whilst productivity is really important, and we need to claw away at those 1 or 2% gains each year, the gross margin behind our product, the value add, comes from branding. And I've had the privilege of working on brands like Vegemite and Cadbury. I've also seen the shortcomings of not having a brand and not owning our produce, and have a personal situation in which in horticulture we were selling cherries 1/10 of their value, and they were being sold for 10 times what we produced them at. But the sellers and the wholesalers weren't adding any value to that whatsoever. And 25 years later, that same cherry farm is selling in China for $59 a kilo. Traceable, robotics, it's in Tasmania. So I just want to put that out there. That grower's worked up the supply chain, they've branded their product, they own the brand, they invest in the brand. And my challenge, I think today, for all of you, is don't underestimate Cotton Australia brand, don't underestimate your story, but also don't rest on your laurels. Continue to push and work on your brand and invest in your brand, because ultimately you will live or die by it. We might just start with a bit of a theme reel around True Aussie. And when I first came into this role, I found that Australian agriculture had a brand problem. We had 175 different fresh foods in the Chinese market under different brands. And can you imagine a $40 billion retail giant dealing with 175 Australian suppliers? They're going to take the gross margin. They're not going to get good point of sale. They're not going to get off locations. Or imagine if we actually aggregated our ability to negotiate and collaborate with those 175 brands. Imagine if we had a wall this large in every Chinese supermarket, guaranteed Australian food and fibre. So I started a journey with a number of like-minded people to make sure that agriculture in Australia owns our brand. The other part of that just wasn't consumers. It's also around the next generation, Australian youth. Not many of us are encouraging our children to go into agriculture. We need to actually promote it and talk it up. Less drought, more vibrant young families living in rural Australia, earning good money, using innovation, and having a great lifestyle.
You're looking at the most beautiful food factory in the world. A country with unparalleled potential. A place where the grass is greener and the water is cleaner. Creating produce to standards that are the highest in the world. While investment in mining and manufacturing continues to drop, Australia has the opportunity to double its agricultural exports to $100 billion by 2030. We have the opportunity to brand all that is good about Australia. We have the opportunity to bring the world True Aussie.
That's certainly the image I'd love to take to China, and also the image I'd love every Australian under 25 to feel good about agriculture in this country. And apologies for the lack of cotton clips there. Next year I'll fix that up. So let's look at the future. It's not too far away. 2030. The next generation of farmers are in probably high school and secondary school as we speak, and this is what they're going to inherit. They're going to inherit. This is value, not volume. It's very difficult for us to double volume in 15 years, but value is going up and going up quite fast. We've seen that with beef in particular. So horticulture is a big winner. Horticulture will be the largest export from Australian agriculture. Only thing holding horticulture back is market access and the phytosanitary non-tariff barriers. But if you think about Australia, we have an inherent right to win in horticulture. We have available land to increase hort. We've seen the digital agriculture coming, vitally important. We'll be able to be more intensive with horticulture. The key thing around horticulture in Australia is we can produce every form of horticulture in the world, in Australia. Alpine, savanna, tropical, subtropical, Mediterranean. No other country can really claim to do that. But more importantly, we can pick or pluck it and put it on a dinner table in China the same day. And if you want to talk about a premium produce, I can guarantee you consumers will pay a premium for a product that has been picked or plucked and fresh the same day. And so on it goes, and obviously I'm very bullish on cotton as well. Adam tells me to continue to be bullish on cotton. Cotton's great, but we need to get the story out there harder and faster. Natural fibre, natural advantages, and I'll talk a bit more about that. Seafood's a bit of a sleeper, record growth for aquaculture, and on it goes. But the future is bright. But who's going to actually take the profit? Is it going to be a farm gate profit, or is it going to be through the supply chain? My wife's business exports premium food from Australia into China. And when she first started that business, there were 14 hands in the till on that supply chain. She's now down to 3. We need to think about owning our brand and connecting as close to the consumer as we can. And ultimately, that will generate the maximum profit. But of course, we just can't do branding alone. I think branding is most important. Market access. Those free trade agreements, vitally important. The North Asian free trade agreements, we do need one in Indonesia, we do need one in India. And Minister Rob is an outstanding gentleman and strategic thought leader. And he doesn't play politics. He puts Australia first, and frankly, I wish a number of other politicians did that. The FTAs aren't done and dusted, it's just the starting line. We need to copy the Kiwis. The Kiwis, yep, got the FTA, work on the non-tariff barriers, get our product into market. Productivity, I've spoken about that. Demand, this is where Brand Australia comes in. What Australian consumers don't recognise, that the rest of the world recognise, is that we produce the best food, full stop. The most traceable food to the highest standards. And the traceability, the standards and the production is largely governed by farmers. And that's why we should own the brand. And we've seen for many years now, people selling Brand Australia in Asia who have nothing to do with the Australian farmer or the supply chain. So we need to actually jump ahead of that and produce a central brand. It doesn't diminish anyone else's brand. Cotton Australia, Aussie certified. That's fine. Red meat, Aussie certified. Brands can coexist. But behind the Aussie brand, we need to make sure it is traceable. And I'll come back to traceability in a minute. To tell your story and to be authentic and to showcase your standards, we need to make sure the product can't be counterfeited or shortchanged. 17 versions of Brand Australian key markets, different logos out there, all with, a couple of $1 million of marketing spent. If we aggregate that, we have probably the biggest brand in Asia, if we aggregate. 100% New Zealand pure, 1/3 of our marketing budget, but 400%, 4 times the consumer cut through. When you walk into a supermarket, quite often you see a wall of New Zealand pure. People selling, aggregating together, negotiating together. I guess when a Kiwi wakes up, they think, you know what, we're too small, our domestic market's too small, and they do 2 things. And I know cotton farmers do these as well, but they say we need to cooperate, collaborate, and we need to export. There's nothing here for us domestically, and we can't fight each other. And one of my hopes in this role is to actually have all the other farming members in my lovely family think the same and act the same. The True Aussie brand's been launched. It's in 12 key markets. The really important thing around the True Aussie brand is it doesn't matter what we think of it, because we're not selling to ourselves. So the key thing that I learned working for Kraft, Cadbury and Danone was that the consumer is always right and use consumer insights. So the True Aussie name actually came from the 2 best words that we could associate with agriculture and Australia. So True Aussie converts in Chinese to trusted, reliable, authentic partner. And we don't get called Australia or Australians. We get a few characters that call us Oz or Aussie. So you put those 2 together, trusted, reliable, authentic partner from Australia. And so we tested True Aussie in Japan, China, India, Indonesia, even the US. It works. It works from the consumer side. Now, this is a bit of a thought provoker here. Where could cotton go to? A great brand, a great image, but what do you need to do with your wholesalers and with your retailers to continue to demand a premium price? And you deserve a premium price, and we know why. And Adam and I have trademarked this one. What about traceable, where the consumer can pick up their jacket, their garment, and they can put in a unique code, and they can trace it back to the farmer. Ultimately, consumers want to be connected to the farmer, to the producer, and they want to see a story. And if we can do that and show them it's authentic through a supply chain, then the price is going to go through the roof, and the interest from Asian consumers who love, and I hate to use the word novelties, but they love that, will be a game changer, and they'll demand Australian cotton. Would consumers buy it? Yes, they are, and I'll show you a case study. This is already happening out there with a competing fibre. Can we authenticate it? So important to be traceable? Yes, we can. And the National Farmers Federation and we're working with Cotton Australia on this very, very item. How do we actually aggregate some of our big data, understand our Asian consumers better, have insights that lead to where we're heading to, and have a traceability system from paddock to plate or paddock to garment? The facts prove it. Hands up here if you don't own a phone. Okay. Well, we all own phones, but surprisingly, Chinese middle class own phones twice as much as Australians. And there's a reason for that. 80 to 85% of Chinese middle class, when they purchase a premium product, will scan it, will Google it, will search for it, will want to know information around it. And the profound difference between us as Australians and a Chinese consumer is that we trust where our food and fibre comes from. We assume it's safe, it's secure, it's real, it's not counterfeit. As soon as incomes rise in China, they go for protein. And as soon as they purchase a protein product, they're looking for it. Is it traceable? The country that wins the traceability race will have the premium product and the premium reputation throughout the world for food and fibre. And this is the system, and I've got a whole document behind it. But basically what happens is the NBN satellites will go up, fingers crossed, February, March next year. They're absolutely vital for rural Australia. At the moment we have a digital divide, haves and have-nots. I know many of you have given me your stories around what you've had to try and do to enable you to be connected. As soon as those satellites are up, we can trace from paddock. We can geocode every farm in Australia. So we can trace everything that we produce, food and fibre. We can then, through the cloud data, identify where it was processed, where it was packaged, when it cleared customs or quarantine, when it arrives in Shanghai quarantine centre, when it was given to the wholesaler. And this is the really interesting piece. And I've seen this in play. The Chinese consumer can walk up to the leg of lamb on the supermarket and they'll scan the product, and what it's going to tell them, and this isn't a pipe dream, this is a real project, it's going to tell them they're in Suzhou Road, they're in the Carrefour supermarket, aisle 6. They're purchasing an Australian product, lamb, and then within 30 seconds it's going to trace that lamb through all those nodal points I just described. At the same time, it's going to tell that true Aussie story. It's going to be story and science, and they're going to walk away going, well, I'm completely convinced this is an authentic product and I'm going to pay a price premium. Now, if we do that for food and fibre, that is a game changer ahead of our agricultural peer set, France, Italy, North America, etc. And that's just what it looks like. The trial's been started for milk. The milk product on the left there is selling for $9 a litre, slightly better than the domestic price at the moment. And a great case of showing a fully traceable product back to Australia and consumers willing to pay. And those cunning Kiwis, this is one of my favourite brand case studies. So think of a tracer bale and think of barcode. They could not work out how they could get differentiation into the Chinese market, into Japanese market. So they thought, you know what, we'll go out to our top 15 merino farms, we'll put cameras in play, and we'll show, from an animal welfare perspective and an authentic perspective, we'll show how well we treat where we get our wool from. And so when you bought a garment and you paid pretty much double the competitor price for that garment, you could put in your barcode and it would trace you back to the farm and show you the animal. That's what consumers are willing to pay for. And that's, I think, is a challenge, a good challenge for cotton. And this is just a little bit more about True Aussie. So True Aussie is going to come with a broad story for Australian agriculture, best food and fibre producers in the world, traceable to high standards. These are some of the products where it's been put on in market. So there you have lamb, beef, horticulture, and I've just mocked up a cotton one there. There's no reason why it can't look something like that. And this is Andrew Robb in market doing the launch. Interesting, we need to think as a nation, we need to think smarter. I get really frustrated with the lucky country rhetoric. We need to be the smart country. We need to make sure that Tourism Australia is promoting agriculture, provenance and food, and they are. The Restaurant Australia campaign is brilliant. If you think of the Lara Bingle campaign, where the bloody hell are you, that actually offended most of our trading partners. It was crass. We're just a nation full of beaches and bikini-clad swearers. No. We produce the best food in the world. We have the best provenances in the world. So connecting Austrade, Brand Australia, tourism together to sell our story is vitally important. And that's one of my challenges. And how do we do this? Different producers produce to different standards. I'd have cotton in tomorrow because obviously your standards are global best practice. Starting with red meat, bring the dairy in, love to bring cotton in, and we'll just build up. It takes a number of years to build a brand, but we build this up, and we have a brand council, and we can direct how we talk about agriculture overseas. So that's all I wanted to talk to you today. We might just close with, again, what it could look like moving forward. And this is a bit of a mock-up, but it's actually a real supermarket where we're trialling the technology. And Simon, do we have time for questions, or do you want me to close after that? We're going to close it, right. So I'll just leave you with this, what the future could look like.
There's a place with rolling green hills covered in lush grass, with cool, deep oceans teeming with life. A place so special, so clean, so genuine, you can actually taste it. That's Australia for you. Download the True Aussie app to make sure that it is True Aussie.